Welcome, sports fans. DawgsSports.com. I'm your host, Mike Davis. I tell you what, I got a special event for you this evening. I'm bringing in my main man, Murf Baldwin from Saturday Down South. We're going to talk some Georgia football. We're going to preview this season for the red and black of Athens, the Georgia Bulldogs. We see what they're going to be able to do this season and kind of give you a rundown of who may give them some problems, some of their strengths and weaknesses on both sides of the ball, et cetera, et cetera. And certainly from a betting standpoint, we'll look at the over-under of the 9. It's over-under right now of 9 wins for the season. So without further ado, let me bring in my main man, Murf Baldwin from Saturday Down South. What's up, Murf? How are you, buddy?
My main man, Mike Davis. What's going on, baby? You're a legend in these parts, so it's nothing but an honor to do your show, my man.
Well, I appreciate it, Murf. Listen, I know all about your stuff, man, all about your writing. I've read a couple of your pieces, man. I really like it. Before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone and let them know where they can find your not only your writing, but you do some radio as well.
Oh, yeah, I sure do, man. You can check me out on Saturday Down South on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m., giving you those X's and O's film breakdowns, man. I cover the entire conference, so well, maybe there's a couple of teams out there they don't let me cover, but for the majority, I cover the the entire conference. So,
okay.
And other than that, man, you can find me on the V Sporto Network on Dawgs Sports Radio, hosting a Georgia show there with my main man Jeremy Attaway from DawgSports.com. So that's a big Georgia site there for all you Georgia people out there. Make sure you get to DawgSports.com and check us out there and find that on iTunes for me, man. Find it on iTunes, subscribe, comment, and rate if you like what I'm saying. So.
Okay. Hey, that's great stuff, man. I hope everyone will do that, add you, and get over there. So, listen, you're an X's and O's guy, and that's very informative for myself as a handicapper. It comes in handy. I'll be using you throughout the year, as I've used several different guys in the past. I'll continue to use them and yourself, and I'll tell you what, I'm excited about this season. So let's jump right into it. Georgia Bulldogs. First off, Murf, let's look at some of their strengths this season. If you're breaking down the Georgia Bulldogs overall, what are some of their strengths?
All right, well, first we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. You know, everybody's going to know about the offense. But on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be that front seven, you know. First and foremost, you got a trio of pass rushers. Might be the best trio of the pass rushers in the nation when you talk about Lorenzo Carter, 6'6" guy there from my part of the woods here in Norcross.
Mm-hmm.
The kids is just fantastic, man. You talk about a stand-up 6 technique guy. He's one of those guys that you would probably like to see him in a 4-3 even front alignment. But I mean, he's just so athletic that he can play that position, you know. And he's not the most accomplished player on the team. That would go to his counterpart on the other side, another stand-up 6 technique in Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
Floyd is just is an absolute freak, man. I've done breakdowns on both of them, and you talk about somebody who can get to the passer, but somebody who can also play in reverse. That's both of those guys, you know. So it'll be up to Pruitt to get that pass rush going. He has a third guy who's the most accomplished out of them all, and Jordan Jenkins. Jenkins is a versatile player, man. You can stand him up as an outside linebacker, but he can also play on the inside as a kind of a nickel pass rusher. Maybe at like a 5 technique, you know, so you can play him as a 3-4 defensive end, even though he's probably no more than 250, 260 pounds, man. He's just a powerhouse, and he's just good at what he does. So, man, you talk about first, that's where you're going to start. So if you can we already know if you can shut down the pass, if you can get a pass rush going in the SEC with some of these teams, these spread tempo-based teams, you're on your way, man. Well, other than that, man, they're bringing in a Trent Thompson. He's a number 1 player in the nation as a defensive tackle. I think kids like 6'4", 6'5", 313, 310 pounds or something like that, man. But he's just an absolute beast. So what he's going to do is he's going to help with that run defense first and foremost. You're going to play him at a shade, a 1 technique, play him over the nose tackle, and being able to funnel him in front of the run back outside to where you have guys that can play the run in a Jordan Jenkins or a Leonard Floyd or a Lorenzo Carter. So that front
How much can he really help Georgia as a true freshman, Murf?
Oh, man, he's going to step right in and be a starter. There's no doubt about that. So you can, because he's got scheme versatility, you know. So you play him at a 1 technique or you can play him at the 5 technique. So he'll be in rotation there, but he'll start and he'll move all around that line. So, and then other than that, man, you move it back, man, and you got those off the ball linebackers. That's probably where the problem might consist of, you know. But you got a talented guy like Reggie Carter, and you're bringing in another guy in Roquan Smith. So they got talent back there too, man. But it's that secondary. That's going to be the point of contention there. So we'll see what Pruitt can do with the secondary. I like the talent back there with Dominic Sanders and Quincy Mauger and a host of other players coming in and some that are already on the roster, man. So I think the defense will be pretty good this year.
Okay, and you think obviously that'll be, not only with personnel, but I mean, I think Georgia's always had the personnel. I've always questioned the coaching on that side. Pruitt obviously brings a lot to the table. What's bothered me about Georgia in the past is, quite frankly, that they just have not had anybody on that defensive line that can make a play by themselves. I mean, I'm talking about an interior guy that can absolutely just blow up the line of scrimmage. I don't want to hear about what's the kid from a few years back, Jenkins or what have you. These guys were not great interior guys. Is Trent Thompson the answer? Is there somebody else I can look for there? I looked for that kid a few years ago that came out that ended up getting kicked off the team at Georgia and Alabama. I thought he was going to be the guy. He didn't make it. I mean, can Trent Thompson fill that role?
I thought Jonathan Taylor was a pretty good player, but I don't think he's on the level of a Trent Thompson, man. Trent Thompson is an absolute animal, man. The thing about him is he's going to be able to tie up blocks, and he's going to be able to work from different techniques. So if you have somebody who can tie up blocks and you allow the other guys to be able to flow to the ball, like I said with Reggie Carter and those off the ball inside linebackers like that. But also you can use him as just a flat out one gap penetrating pass rusher, just have him flow upfield, man. I think he can do that as well. It's hard to put the onus on kids and they haven't played a down of football, but sometimes you just know, man. And this is one of those kids when you saw him on the circuit, you just absolutely know he's going to make a complete impact right away. Okay,
well, that's fair. I tell you what, in handicapping the Georgia Bulldogs in the past, that's always been my problem with them is, do they have any interior linemen? Their linebackers make all the tackles, but it's because nobody's making a headway at the interior linemen. I just, I have a problem with them there. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the season. So until they show me differently, I'll look for teams that can run the football and have strong offensive lines to give the Bulldogs trouble on defense. So we'll see how that.
I don't blame you right there either, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so let's go to the offensive side. What we looking like on offense for the Georgia Bulldogs, Murf?
Well, as much as I like the defense, the offense is going to be even better. We'll put it this way. It has a chance to be even better depending on what they get from the quarterback. But that they have the most productive offensive line. The guys play as a unit, man, from pillar to post there, man. You got a whole bunch of guys that you probably won't see as NFL stars. If you talk about like the right guard, Greg Pike, the right tackle, Colton Houston, the left tackle, John Theus. You got the center, Brandon Coblano, somebody I know you're pretty familiar with as well. Sure. Those guys, man, you talk about some players, they play as a unit, man, and they have scheme versatility with them themselves, You talk about inside zone, outside zone, power O schemes, pin and pull techniques. They got a very vast run game, and those guys know how to use their technique because I don't think any of them are really over 305 pounds, but it just goes to show you it's not all about size, It's all about technique as well, and those guys have that.
Perfect. And wouldn't you agree with me? This is one of the most cerebral offensive lines that's come along in, not just Georgia, but anywhere in a long time. These kids are smart. I mean, they really work together and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's the only way that you can be able to oscillate between schemes like that. That's a lot of different run concepts to be able to throw upon a whole bunch of college kids. But like you said before, man, they're the most cerebral unit I've seen. They're not the most talented unit. I would give that to LSU and probably Arkansas. Okay. But the most productive and the most cerebral and the best technique and the best mechanics, hands down, goes to Georgia. Okay. All right, fair enough. So we got the offensive line. What else do we have this year, Murf? Well, of course. Well, I'm going to say that for last. We got targets. And I'm talking about outside receiving targets and Malcolm Mitchell, another guy that I know you're familiar with. Certainly. A guy like him, man, if he can stay healthy, he's a guy that I think that can win in the quick game. He's got the speed to win in the quick game. He's got the size. I think he's a lot better route runner than people give him credit for, but we know he can flat out run. So if you have somebody with a quarterback that can stretch the field, he's that guy. He's going to stretch the field. So, but you need a guy who can win in the quick game and manufacture first downs. And to me, that'll be possibly Isaiah McKenzie, second-year guy there, littler guy. You can play him in the slot. Human joystick. Human joystick, man. You play the human joystick in the slot. Let him do his thing and manufacture first downs, but he can also go deep as well, man. He's that fast. But I look towards the tight end position to be one that thrives in this particular scheme with Brian Schottenheimer and his use of 22 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel. He loves those tight ends. And between Jeb Blazevich, Jay Rome, Jordan Davis, and even Quavon Hicks, who's more of an H-back but can play out in the tight end position, man, they're loaded.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very deep at tight end. I tell you what, Jeb Blazevich has come in and just set the world on fire. Jay Rome, the former #1 tight end in the country, him and Nick O'Leary a few years back, and the other guys are certainly, and Quavon Hicks, he's just a beast. I mean, he could play defense if they needed him to. So, they're loaded at tight end, and I want to point everybody to your write-up of Schottenheimer's scheme. I really like how you broke it down with the use of the tight ends. I look for those guys to have a big year. Where can they find that write-up, Murf? Of course, I'll put it right here underneath the video, but where can they find it?
Man, you can always just Google Murf Baldwin, Brian Schottenheimer, but you can go to Saturday Down South there and probably look through the scheme section or analysis section or whatever they call it. But your best bet is always just if you want to know about something and know if I've done something, just Google Murf Baldwin and type in something. It could be Murf Baldwin, Bernardrick McKinney or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah, just check me out like that.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, offensive line, wide receivers, tight end, pretty solid. I think we're pretty good in the backfield, aren't we?
You think? We probably got the best running back in the nation. I would, along with Samaj P. Ryan from Oklahoma and Leonard Fournette. I think Leonard Fournette is going to have a big year as well, and some other backs around the country. But Nick Chubb is the class of it. He's one of those guys. He's a rare breed, man. It's hard to say he's any more talented than an Isaiah Crowell or even a Todd Gurley, but what he has is durability. You know, he was the first guy I could see they can give 35 carries to or close to 40 carries, and he looked like he could still keep going. If you do that to Todd Gurley or Isaiah Crowell, man, they'd be missing some games or be missing some halves or something like that, you know. And that's not to get down on those gentlemen or anything like that, but it's just what it is, man. Some guys have that durability. You know, it's not a toughness thing, man. Sometimes you just get nicked up in your running style. But
and he's got that low center of gravity.
Yeah,
and
he does.
Huge thighs. I mean, this guy has he's built like a running back.
Man, he looks like the exact kind of running back that you would want in a scheme like that, man. You know, like I said before, man, it's a scheme where the running back's going to have to read off 3 techniques, running that inside zone or being able to see if the guys are being washed down to the field and bend it back inside. He has great vision. He has great burst. I'm not sure about his long speed. He gets caught from behind a lot. But, I mean, 50 or 60-yard runs getting caught from behind, I mean, like, hey, who's going to argue about that, you know? Right. But he can absolutely punish you, and he can drive you in the grass like fertilizer, man. He's that good. And behind
what about the depth at that position?
That's what I say. Behind him, man, Sony Michel. You know, Sony Michel is a bad man. You know, he's another guy with he got a little bit better speed, I think, at least football speed. You know, I'm not sure if he has better track speed. But he's another guy that you can hit him with the screen game. Georgia's going to always have a great screen game, and Schottenheimer's really great with his screen game as well. And of course, man, you got Keith Marshall. He's probably more talented than anybody that's been on that roster. He was the most highly rated player that I've seen come in Georgia as a running back. And man, the injuries just derailed his career, and so did Todd Gurley becoming a superstar himself. But if he's healthy too, man, you talk about being able to just absolutely pile drive a team or pile drive a team into submission, man. That's what the Georgia backfield can do.
Okay, let's get right to it now. This is the crux of the Georgia Bulldogs season. There's no reason to fake it. Let's just face it. Quarterback position, you're bringing in Lambert from Virginia. With all due respect to the young man, he was highly recruited out of Jessup, Georgia, and he was a fantastic high school player. He goes up to Virginia. He gets some starts, but I believe he was beat out, and now he wants to come in and everybody thinks he's going to be the starter. Or is it Bryce Ramsey from Camden County? Is it Balta? I mean, who is it? And are you troubled by this position?
I won't say that I'm troubled by the position because at the very least, all you need is a bus driver at Georgia. We saw that last year with Hudson Mason. Hudson Mason didn't light the world on fire. He didn't have a big arm, but he was pretty accurate, and he wasn't really going to beat himself, except in the Georgia Tech game, of course. But right. we'll leave that alone. But the thing about that is they don't need a big-time playmaker like a Dak Prescott to play at Georgia. You just need somebody who can get the ball in the hands of all these talented targets that they have and being able to hand that ball off to Nick Chubb and those guys too. So I like Grayson Lambert. I did a big-time breakdown on him. Google that, Murf, Baldwin, Grayson Lambert. And I think that he's a scheme-specific fit for a Brian Schottenheimer offense. He has a big arm. He's a 6'5", 230-pound quarterback. He has accuracy in the quick game. This is something that people aren't really shedding light on because most people really don't know about him anyway in these parts. But I watched a lot of Virginia games, and the guy has accuracy in the quick game, and he can extend plays. He's not an overly mobile guy, but I mean he's mobile enough to where he can extend plays like Brian Schottenheimer would want. And he's who I like, man. I like Bryce Ramsey as well. He's kind of a little smaller version of my man Grayson Lambert. He's got a big arm. He can stretch vertical, but I'm afraid of him in the quick game, and I'm afraid of him making decisions that won't beat the team, you know. I can say that same thing with Grayson Lambert as well, man. He had 10 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, you know, but put it this way, he's playing with a team that I don't think one player would start on Georgia. Not one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even the running back would be like fourth string, and he was like the best player on their team. So when you start surrounding guys with better talent, they start to look a lot better. I knew that when I played, and we played with better talent around me, I always looked a lot better, and vice versa. So I wouldn't even hang that on him. He was his first year starting. You know, the year before he got in a few games, but that was his first time as a full-time starter, and he showed himself to be pretty good. You know, so I think coming to Georgia, he could be really good, and so could Bryce Ramsey. And I'm not so sure about Fatone Bada, man. He doesn't have a big arm, but he's very mobile, and it's depending on how they want to do their scheme. He could be a scheme fit as well, man, moving the pocket for those play actions and QB waggles like that. So they'll be fine at the position.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see. Let's get to the over-under of 9 wins. And before we get there, I'm just going to cut right to the chase, Mr. Baldwin. Can the Georgia Bulldog coaching staff step up to the plate? Is it time for the Georgia Bulldogs to win an SEC title and perhaps a national championship? Can they do it this year?
They can definitely do it this year because it's wide open. You know, the West might beat itself up. You know,
do you believe in Mark Richt?
I won't say that I believe in Mark Richt like a diehard like that, but I think the guy can coach. He obviously can coach. He can coach coaches too. So, you know, a lot of the coaches that's been on his staff have gone on to bigger things, and maybe not on the defensive side of the ball, but I like what he did with Mike Bobo and some of the other guys he had on the offensive staff, even with like the receiver coach now that is Brian McClendon, you know, with a running back the guy can coach. We know that, but it's just always going to be something, you know, whether it's a Florida or a Tennessee or somebody, one of those flying the ointment teams. So hopefully they can survive one of those games because they may lose one of those games. But I tell you what, man, if they can get by Alabama at home, then I think they'd be smooth sailing from there, man. They can afford a slip up then, but they can't lose to Alabama and afford a slip up. All
right, so let's look at it. I'm just going to go through the games that I think are pertinent. I think, you know, Louisiana Monroe, they're going to win that. They'll win at Vandy, even though Vandy has given Georgia some problems in the past. South Carolina at home, I think South Carolina's on the decline. I really do. I look for Georgia to win that, even though Spurrier kind of owns Georgia. The Southern Jaguars, Georgia will win that one. And there we have it, October 3rd, Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban comes to town. I think Georgia wins that ball game, Murf. But it will depend on how good we're playing on the defensive line. Can a Trent Thompson, guys like that, step up? Because, you know, let's face it, Lane Kiffin coached Alabama out of the national championship game last year when he decided not to run the ball. I'm a little bitter about that. I don't know if you can tell, but you know, but if he wants to throw it around on Georgia, I like Georgia's chances. But if they line up and crash Derrick Henry at Georgia every play, Alabama has a good chance of winning that game. Having said that, the very next week is my trap game, Murf. I think Georgia Bulldogs go into Tennessee and get beat October 10th after an emotional win versus Alabama the week before. What are your thoughts?
I can definitely see how you could arrive there. It's going to be a super talented team. Butch Jones has been recruiting his butt off. He's been recruiting at the level of a Georgia or Alabama in the last couple of years with a couple of top 5 recruiting classes. And this is the year, man. Anything you can think of, that's front 7. I think Tennessee's front 7 might be just as good, if not better. Okay. You know, as far as the defensive side of the ball, we'll see what they can do in the secondary with Cam Sutton. I think he's a kind of a shutdown corner, at least as a college. But it's going to be all about that offensive side of the ball, man. And if Josh Dobbs plays as well as we think he's going to play, they very well could lose that game at Tennessee.
And he's got the freshman running back from last year. I can't remember his name.
Jalen Hurd.
Yeah, Jalen Hurd, who's an absolute beast. He runs a little high, but he's a beast. And then you got Alvin Kamara. People listening right now, remember the name Alvin Kamara. He will be a stud at Tennessee.
Yes, sir. Coming from Alabama, you know, I know you know about him. You know, I listened to him on your show back in the day.
Yep.
And he's a good wingman to a guy like Jalen Hurd, a big 6'3" guy that's 230 pounds. But it's that scheme, man. They're gonna have to want to run the ball. You know, Butch Jones like to throw the ball all around the yard. So we'll see if they actually commit to the run. But if they do, they're gonna be a tough team this year, man, because they are loaded at the receiver. Best top 4 or 5 receivers definitely in the Eastern Division, and probably top 3 in the conference, and one of the best in the nation.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And we'll certainly get to Tennessee and Alabama as we do more shows, and we'll do an overall show prediction for the SEC as well. But let's focus on the Georgia Bulldogs. So as of right now, I have them losing one game. That's at Tennessee. I think they'll come back home the next week and rebound versus Missouri and win. I think they'll beat Florida this year. I think they'll beat Kentucky. And here's where I worry about them: at Auburn, Saturday, November 14th. I think they lose that game as well. That'll give us 2 SEC losses for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey, you're on the money, man. I can't argue against that. I think Auburn is going to be special this year as well. So, I mean, they got the quarterback. You know, we'll get to them on another time. But I think that team is loaded. Now they got the coaching with Will Muschamp to help that defense out. We know that offense is probably going to pace the conference. So all they need is just a little bit of defense. That's
right. And then Georgia ends up with Georgia Southern and Georgia Tech. I think they win both of those games. So
now, hold on. I wouldn't just totally gloss over that Georgia Tech game, though.
Well,
Georgia Tech is going to be real good
Let me tell you something. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to roll over Georgia Tech this year. It's not even going to be close, my friend Murf.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I'm just letting you know. Okay,
right, so I got you.
Let me count them up real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It has them at 10 wins, so I'm going over the total of 9 for the Georgia Bulldogs this year. Are you comfortable with that, Murf?
Yeah, 10 wins is looking real good, man. I'll even go as far as 11.
Okay, fair enough. And I mean, if they land on 9, it's a push for all the bettors out there. So we're going over the total of 9 for the Georgia Bulldogs. Murf Baldwin, always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. I tell you what, we're going to do an Alabama show within the next few days, and then we're going to maybe do 1 or 2 more teams and then head right into our big SEC prediction show. Murf, always a pleasure, man. Where can the guys follow you on Twitter, my man?
You can follow me at Murf Baldwin. That's MurfBaldwin, at Murf Baldwin. And if you really want to do some business, want to talk some business, shoot me on an email at Gmail, murfbaldwin@gmail.com.
There you go, Murf Baldwin, my main man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike, my man. Always a pleasure.
All right, buddy.